Hello, Internet. My name is Ben Zwyman. And I could...
Hello, Internet. I'm Jessie Coffield. Welcome to DraftKings' The Sweat. I know it's Monday, which isn't ideal, but I've got good news. The next hour is dedicated solely to delivering football advice and analysis. It's all NFL Monday, people. Let's bring in our panel. DK Live's Jeff Ulrich, Reed Fowler, and Ben Zwyman for Overreaction Monday, Impressive Performances Edition. I want your takes on some of these surprisingly impressive performances from Sunday. Lamar Jackson proved to everybody that he can throw the ball to 324 yards and 5 touchdowns against the Dolphins. Jeff, was this a product of his greatness, or is Miami just really that bad?
I mean, look, I don't want to be the guy who just doesn't believe in Lamar Jackson here, but if you're asking me, I mean, it's more a product of the opponent he was facing. I do think with the additions the Ravens made at wide receiver, and they obviously Miles Boykin, Brown, they're good additions, and you saw them use the fact that Miami was cheating towards the run to their advantage on some of these big plays. So it's not that I expect Lamar Jackson to just regress to a terrible passer again, but I mean, my God, Miami they're just so bad that you really don't know how much Lamar Jackson has progressed so far because you haven't seen him against a real opponent. I do expect he'll regress a little bit towards his efficiencies from last season when he comes up against a better pass defense. But the good news for fantasy is he didn't even have to run last week, and he still put up a monster game. So I'm still bullish on Lamar Jackson going forward. But, you need to temper expectations a little bit, obviously.
Reed, do you agree? Do you want to temper your expectations, or do you think that this is the guy who's going to keep doing stuff like this as the season continues?
Well, first, Jeff has to change his whiteboard. That's old news already. Old news, Jeff.
Come on. I mean, it's a hot waiver wire pickup, just like I said.
No, I'm going to disagree with Jeff here. Obviously, it's a Monday. I have to do that. Look, Lamar Jackson, I get how bad. It's a product of both, right? Miami is really bad. They probably have a couple of second-string guys on this team that are starting. Xavier Howard is the one bright spot on that defense, on that team. But look at Lamar Jackson and what he's been able to do. And coming out of college, too, if you just looked at this guy's footwork, if you looked at what he was able to do in his rookie season, coming into the draft, he was being underrated as a passer. His first season coming into or his first few games coming into last season, he was doing he was operating under someone else's offense for Joe Flacco, and so he wasn't put in the right spots. And Arizona is not a better defense that much than Miami, especially in that secondary. They gave up close to 40 yards more to Matt Stafford than he had all last season. So I think he's going to do well again this week, and I wouldn't be surprised if he puts up another monster week.
Got a terrific matchup this week. I fully admit that. You could see a little bit of continuation with the basket.
Okay, but Ben, last season this guy, relied on his legs a lot. Yesterday, he only rushed 3 times for 6 yards. So, I mean, are we just seeing like a different quarterback this year?
Not really. I think it was more the game script, right? The Ravens needed to run they didn't really need to do much. They had those huge plays, and then Mark Ingram got it going on the ground, so they didn't really need to risk running Lamar Jackson much, and he wasn't getting pressured. Lamar Jackson's going to run when he's getting pressured. They're not. I feel like at this point they're not going to do many designed run plays for Jackson. They're going to be like, all right, well, we have these wide receivers, we have Mark Ingram, let's get those guys out, let's feature those guys. If Jackson needs to run, if the play breaks down, he can run. And that's where he'll throw a lot of good defenses off, right? The Dolphins are not a very good team. I agree with Reed. It's a little bit of both this week, but heading into week 2, his price went up a bit, but he's still going to be a chalk play. And if he gets it going on the ground and isn't as productive in the air, he's still going to be a fantastic play, especially in tournaments.
Well, Kyler Murray looked like 2 different quarterbacks yesterday, looking very bad in the first half, but much better in the second. So, Reed, which Kyler do you think we see going forward, or is this going to be like the tale of 2 quarterbacks the whole season?
Yeah, I can't wait for Jeff to disagree with me on this one again, because I think we do see a little bit more of the first half, and it's not necessarily because Kyler is not able to do it. I think he learned a lot with that game. Even though it ended in a tie, I think he learned a lot. He got a lot of experience fighting and competing under pressure. But if you just look at that, what he has to do in real competition, you saw those happy feet. You saw him get out of that pocket, and that's really a product of that offensive line. Not that great, right? They spent a lot of capital on bringing a couple of defensive guys over in free agency, and this may be a blessing in disguise that he struggles a little bit early, right? He gets tough defenses. Baltimore this week. He obviously had a tough defense that he went up in terms of the front 7. He gets Seattle, I think, in the next couple of weeks, but then he has a really, really good schedule. So maybe like week 4, week 5, I really like Kyler. But for the next 2 games, I think it's the first half Kyler will see.
Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't high on Kyler going into week 1. Even the matchup at home, like, it was okay. The Lions have a decent defense, but we don't really know how this offense is going to sort of progress. Like, again, the Ravens are a tough matchup in week 2, so that should really test Kyler. And I think we're going to see more of a Jekyll and Hyde. Some weeks he's going to be good. Some weeks he's going to be productive. Some weeks he's going to look awful. He's going to throw some picks. I think a lot of people thought he'd come in. This air raid offense would work really well. It would look a lot like Mahomes did with the Chiefs last season, but that's not really going to be the case, I don't think. And if we're going week to week, on the road against the Ravens is probably one of the toughest matchups he'll get all season. So yeah, I mean, I'm fading Kyler Murray next week, and I'm probably going to take it week to week the rest of the season.
Jeff, what are you doing with Kyler Murray?
Why would you want to fade a guy who threw 50 times? Like, I mean, this is what the Cardinals are going to do. They're running 4 or 5 wide receivers on 80% of the snaps. I'm not saying it was pretty. It's not pretty. It's not going to be pretty the whole season. You're going to see games like this, like Reed said. You're going to see them start slow and get behind. And then you're going to see what happened in the fourth quarter when teams start to get tired from the pace that the Arizona Cardinals push. And you're going to see Kyler Murray take advantage of some of these spots. The Cardinals are going to lose big some weeks. Kyler is going to be a slot machine for fantasy. You're going to see more performances like this where you just all of a sudden you're like, wow, the Cardinals weren't that great, but he's got like 350 yards and he's racked up some carries too. I expect them to get better as the season goes on. I think Michael Crabtree coming in next week offers them some size in the red zone. And by the way, Jimmy Smith out for the Ravens next week, so it's not as bad a matchup as it might have been. So, look, it's going to be a developing story, but I'm bullish on this Arizona Cardinals offense. They might not look good, but the pace is there. Is exactly what you want to see for fantasy purposes.
Jags fans, Jeff, could not have been happy with what went down yesterday. Couldn't have been feeling too good when Nick Foles went down in the first quarter with a fractured clavicle, but his backup Gardner Minshew came in and didn't look half bad. He was 22 of 25 for 275 yards with 2 touchdowns and a pick. I mean, Ben, did you see enough of him to make him worth rostering in week 2 against the Texans, or you kind of want to stay away from this guy?
Yeah, I think I did see enough to consider rostering him. I mean, I'm only playing him in big, high volume GPPs, mostly because his price is $4,800, but going on the road against the Texans is a tough matchup. Granted, the Texans are playing tonight, so you're going to get them on a short week. But yeah, he showed pretty good chemistry with wide receivers like Chris Conley. DJ Chark had a really good game. D.D. Westbrook got it going late in that game. I think they'll feature Leonard Fournette a lot more because obviously Gardner Minshew is playing his second NFL game. So yeah, maybe this helps Fournette a little bit. They'll give him upwards of 20 carries, maybe feature him a little bit more in the pass game. That's what they said this offseason, that they're going to try and get Leonard Fournette going in the pass game, and we didn't really see that against the Chiefs. So yeah, I mean, I would proceed with caution definitely because it's Gardner Minshew, but his price is really low, so you'll be able to pay up for a lot of guys in GPPs, which is a good strategy.
Jeff, sorry about St. Nick.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's the day after. I'm finally over it. It's so disappointing to watch right after he threw the long touchdown to the guy I'd been telling everyone to play. But look, I mean, this is a story that I could see actually working out pretty well. Gardner Minshew isn't some slub. I know he's a 6th-round pick, but I mean, very productive in college. He completed 70% of his throws, threw for almost 5,000 yards as a senior. I mean, this is a good draft pick by the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I think people just sort of forgot or just didn't know who he was because, like me, you didn't expect him to be taking snaps behind Nick Foles. You didn't expect him to be challenging for the job this year, maybe in a couple of years or something. But this was a very capable college quarterback working with, in my opinion, one of the best OCs in the league, in John DeFilippo. So you saw it work right from the get-go. I'm not bearish on this situation at all. I feel like guys like DJ Chark, D.D. Westbrook's still going to be very viable. It doesn't mean you have to go out and roster him next week in all your DFS lineups, but you can still consider him. You might want to take a week or two. But I think Jacksonville's going to be, at least their offense for fantasy is still going to be viable going forward.
Reed, I mean, are you okay?
What just happened?
What
just happened?
Hold on. First we had bearish, then bullish. Now we have bearish. Like what is tigerish?
Okay, now you know what I experience
next, right?
every day with Jeff Ulrich on the sweat is this
Pete
constant...
Gardner, baby, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. It was never really about Nick Foles, right? And look what I did. I played against Jeff in our fantasy league, and I rostered Nick Foles based on his advice, and look what happened.
Jeff's master plan was
right,
working.
I know, exactly. Look, fine. He looked great. Whatever you want to say, whatever adjective you want to use for his play, you can use it, Jeff, because it was a Kansas City secondary, one of the worst in the NFL. And they were playing from behind, and so he had to throw the ball a bunch. And so, yes, he is a good prospect. That's what if they had so much trust in this guy, and I know it's a depth chart thing, why are you bringing in Josh Dobbs? I mean, trading a 5th or a late-round draft pick isn't much, but I just don't see it. I don't think you have to do it. I don't like DJ Chark as a pickup because this offense, never trying to put a chip in a bad offense. Like, we always do this. This is Jacksonville's narrative. It's what second-string quarterback is going to try and make other fantasy people or fantasy players on Jacksonville's team viable, and it just always fails. Play Leonard Fournette. Everyone else in Jacksonville sit.
Evan Engram led all tight ends with just under 32 DK points. Eli Manning connected with him 11 times for 116 yards and a touchdown. Jeff, will he be able to continue an elite level tight end throughout the season?
Oh, God, yes. This is the year. Finally. I've been touting Evan Engram since he came in the league. I don't even know if it was 2 or 3 years ago, but I'm so excited for this guy. He's basically a wide receiver playing tight end. He was my value pick week 1, 2, if you tuned in Sunday. I don't know. You probably didn't. No one cares if you did. But look, the Giants might even be without Sterling Shepard this coming week. I mean, they have no choice but to just huck it up to Evan Engram. And he's tall, speed. I think he's going to challenge for the tight end yardage record by the end of the season, just out of necessity.
A little quicker on this one, Reed. What do you think?
Yeah, just right. I mean, he stole all my notes as well. You get 14 targets, or even in that range, you're going to be one of the elite tight ends just based on volume. They play the Bills. They were tough against tight end last season, but yeah, he's great.
Ben, what do you think?
The Giants wide receivers right now are Cody Latimer and Benny Fowler. That's all. That's all I got.
That's
all that needs to be said.
That's the segment. Okay. Good stuff, guys. Quick break here before we take a look at Week 1 disappointments.
Time for a DraftKings Fantasy Flash. I'm Brendan Glasheen. Tom Brady's apparently 1,000,000% in on Antonio Brown joining the Patriots. Seems the team has the same wisdom. Adam Schefter with the latest on AB in New England. The Patriots have added an option year for Brown in 2020 at $20 million, which becomes guaranteed if executed. It was done to help for cap paration purposes this season. Brown was not eligible to play in Week 1 against the Steelers, so the All-Pro wide receiver spent his Sunday traveling to New England, settled into his hotel room. Don't get too comfy, AB. Brady offered post-game he'd love to host you at his house. Maybe that's why Giselle wasn't at Gillette Stadium Sunday night. She was waiting for the possible arrival of AB on the front steps. I mean, that type of offer just shows how committed Brady is, 1,000,000%, to making this work. As TB12 said, he and AB haven't had a training camp together, so you gotta force a lot of information. As if the Patriots needed more offensive firepower based on Sunday night's performance. Look out.
You know what really sucks? When you roster a guy who should deliver major fantasy points for you and he just doesn't. Overreaction Monday continues with Week 1 disappointing performances. Our panel consists of DK Live's Jeff Ulrich, RotoWire's Jerry Donabedian, and the Action Network's Matt LaMarca. Need your takes on some of the most disappointing performances from Sunday. It was a game Baker Mayfield will be trying to forget. 3 picks, 5 sacks, 1 for a safety. Odell Beckham Jr. posted a middle-of-the-road 7 catches for 71 yards. Jeff, we'll start with you because you've been the conductor on the Browns hype train. Were people too early on the Browns' optimism?
I mean, obviously they were because they lost pretty big time against Tennessee. But I mean, it was just kind of. You watched the first drive of that game, you were probably like me, you were super excited for what was coming. You were probably thinking this is going to be a blowout because the Browns just went down the field, manhandled, did everything they wanted and scored. From that point on, it was just like mistake after mistake. The Tennessee pass rush got going. Derrick Henry started running the ball, and the Browns just shot themselves in the foot. You have to be a little bit worried that they couldn't protect Baker Mayfield, which is probably the biggest story of this game because he did bruise his hand. It's not a long-term thing, but it obviously affected him a little bit, throwing the 3 picks. It definitely looked like he had lost a little bit of drive on the ball. I like the way they used Odell Beckham. I mean, 11 targets. It wasn't quite the show that everyone wanted, but you like that going forward. I think they're going to be just fine, personally. I think they learned a lesson quickly about getting too hyped up. We'll see what happens. They have a really soft matchup against the Jets. I think they're going to be just fine.
Jerry, what do you think? This is definitely not the start that everyone envisioned for the Browns.
No, it's not, but I think they'll be fine. I mean, it was like the king of all fluky factors contributing to this loss. You have 18 penalties for 180 yards. You have the Titans getting like almost half their yards on 3 plays, including a 75-yard screen pass. All 3 of Mayfield's interceptions were playing behind in the fourth quarter. It's not like he was coming out and making crazy throws. I mean, they put themselves in that position. Certainly a disappointing start. But, if you look at Derrick Henry, if that screen pass doesn't go, at that point, the Browns were only down by 2 points. It just cut the lead toward the end of the third quarter. They could have ended up winning the game. Certainly not what you want to see, like crumbling down the stretch like that. But they did lose their starting left tackle to ejection. Then his backup comes in immediately, gets hurt. So they have to move their right tackle over to left tackle, bring their backup right guard in as the right tackle. So yeah, you're going to have some protection problems when you do that. And the Tennessee defense is pretty good. I'm almost more worried about, if anything, the Browns defense allowing those big chunk plays. But again, it was more like a handful of mistakes and penalties. It's not like the Titans were just going down the field repeatedly, picking up, 5-10 yards at a time consistently. I think the Browns will bounce back fine from this.
Matt, what's your take on the Browns?
Yeah, definitely not panicking. I mean, these guys have hit on the concerns. The only real one is the offensive line, but I'm still not ready to write that off as like a disaster situation. They played the Titans. The Titans have a way of making every game that they play turn into a slop fest. Like, that's just a Tennessee Titans special. I still think if you look at what the Browns did last year under Freddie Kitchens, Baker averaged 8.1 yards per attempt. Nick Chubb averaged roughly 17 and a half DraftKings points per game after taking over as the starter. I still think this offense is going to be fine, more than likely better than fine, given all the talent they have. So I think they're actually a pretty nice buy low opportunity, if anything.
Cam Newton's outfit in his post-game press conference matched his performance yesterday. It was so ugly. Under 8 DK points against the Rams. Jerry, my question is, do you believe he's fully healthy?
I think he's healthy, and I actually like the outfit.
Oh my God, get off this show.
Okay, hear me out. Like, the whole short sleeve suit thing was great. The only problem, and this did almost ruin the whole thing, was the bedazzling on the hat. That was like, if you take that away, and it's a great, perfect pregame outfit. He's got his chin held high with a little scarf.
Jerry, that was the only problem with the outfit.
That, pretty much. The scarf, I think some people might not like it. I can see why. I liked it.
The hottest take I've ever heard on the show. That's saying a lot because I'm on it a lot. So
what I didn't, let's go to what I didn't like, which was 6.3 yard average depth of target. And I think he's healthy. Like, that's just what that offense is now. It's what it was last year, and before Newton got hurt, it was kind of working. It wasn't really exciting. And I do think they need to add that vertical element. But, it's pretty clear what Norv Turner wants to do now is stretch the defense horizontally. I mean, all the short passes, the bubble screens, the stuff to Christian McCaffrey, the jet sweeps with Moore and Samuel, the quick slants. And that stuff all works better if you have a vertical passing game. But I don't think it's a matter of Newton not being healthy. It's just that's what they do on offense. Ron Rivera kind of put it on Newton in his press conference today. He said it wasn't a matter of the play calling. Those were just, his quote was something like, those were just the decisions that Cam made with the ball in his hand. So maybe worry a little bit that he's become this overly conservative guy who's too focused on completing these short passes. But I think that's the kind of thing that can be ironed out. He didn't look like he was still hurting from the shoulder surgery in the offseason.
Okay, Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I was disappointed. I actually had that exact outfit laid out to wear today, but Cam beat me to the punch. I had to put it back in the closet.
So embarrassing.
Yeah, I think he looked fine. I mean, the arm strength was clearly there, and that was what limited him last year. I think the dude just had a bad game, I'll worry if he struggles next week against Tampa Bay. That's when I really think you start breaking out the red flags, because that's a cake matchup. So if he doesn't shred them, then I think we can start, pressing the panic button a little bit.
Okay, Jeff, no one wants to press the panic button. What about you?
No, I pretty much 100% agree with these two guys. I don't think it's a health thing. I think it's kind of a Norv Turner and the way the Panthers offense operates thing. Again, it's against good defenses. The Panthers kind of get shut down sometimes, and Norv Turner not really what I'd call an elite play caller at this point in his career. And I feel like against softer matchups, they're going to be just fine, though, because they do have Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore ready to break those things. So we will see, like Matt just said, against Tampa Bay. If they don't produce there, then maybe we'll be having a different conversation next week.
The entire Steelers offense decided not to show up last night. Ben Roethlisberger had just 10.7 DK points. James Conner just 10.5. Juju Smith-Schuster just 13.8, most of which came in garbage time. I mean, do you trust the Steelers to figure this out, Matt?
Yeah, I do. I think too much of the focus today is being put on the Steelers offense, and not enough is being put on the Patriots defense. I think their D is going to be a monster this year. I mean, you look at those cornerbacks, and they are just really strong in the secondary. Stephon Gilmore is going to be a problem all year. So I am definitely buying the Steelers. There was some talk that Juju maybe isn't suited for the number one wide receiver role and that he's going to miss Antonio Brown not, occupying the outside part of the field. I don't buy that at all. I think the dude just got shut down by one of the best cornerbacks in the game, and that Ben Roethlisberger struggled with a really good defense. So I'm buying them. The only guy that I'm not buying is Dante Moncrief. That guy stinks, and he needs to lose playing time immediately.
Jeff, do you agree it was more of the matchup? It's just more of a reflection of how good the Pats' defense is, or do you think the Steelers' offense is trash?
The Steelers have games like this. They do. I mean, they have games like this against bad teams sometimes, especially on the road. So that's right. The Pats' defense is very good this year. They're going to be they're probably going to go 16-0, but that's the Pats. I think the Steelers will be fine bouncing back. I would like to see them use Deontay Johnson more and just bench Dante Moncrief too. I also like to see them use Jalen Samuels more. So I'm pretty confident this is a veteran team. They're going to turn around. But if they don't start getting these skill players that they have more involved at some point, you are going to concerned a bit. Because, James Conner, he's good, but he's kind of a limited explosive-wise. Jalen Samuels brings a different element, more of that Lev Bell element. And Deontay Johnson's just better than Dante Moncrief. So we'll see how they integrate those guys. I think this might be like a second-half run by the Steelers. They might struggle next week against Seattle. They might just turn around right away, but I think eventually they'll get a turnaround.
Jerry, do you trust the Steelers to figure it out?
Yeah, I trust them to figure it out to the extent they had it figured out last year. I see another, certainly if we're talking about fantasy lineups, I see another buy low opportunity, low ownership, or lower than it should be opportunity in the coming weeks. They got out-coached, and they were extreme. They've always gotten out-coached by better teams. They've always been inconsistent. They've never been the best coached team. They're predictable. Ben Roethlisberger is going to throw the ball a ton. They're going to throw a lot of short passes to Juju and Connor, and hopefully McDonald and Samuels will see more. They're not going to be a great team, but yeah, they're not going to implode because they don't have Antonio Brown. It's going to be the same style of offense. These guys pointed out Dante Moncrief kind of being a waste of targets. Certainly was last night. It'd be nice to see Washington or Deontay Johnson, the rookie, get in there. Really anything else. I think for in fantasy terms, the only thing that I really worry about long-term is that split between James Conner and Jalen Samuels. They actually used no running back on a bunch of plays last night, maybe just adjusting to the situation. But Connor only played 46% of snaps. In the preseason, he was at 92% of the first-team offense. Not hitting the panic button. It's week one. They got down big. It was a weird matchup against a team with much better coaching and, frankly, better players too. But something to watch the next couple weeks.
Good stuff, team. We'll have you all back in a couple minutes to hear the most valuable fantasy lessons you learned from yesterday. But first, here's Brendan Glasheen with Who'd I Miss On?
It's Who'd I Miss On with Adam Levitan. I'm your tour guide for this segment, Brendan Glasheen. WeMo, as we like to call it, is when we recap Adam Levitan's misses from the NFL Sunday main slate. Just 11.5 DK points for Nick Chubb, 17 carries, 75 yards on the ground, 3 grabs on 4 targets in the passing game. Levy, overall, just a shaky day for the Cleveland offense.
Yeah, Nick Chubb was not great. And, maybe we should have seen that Nick Chubb wasn't going to have a full workload. I thought that with Duke Johnson gone, it was going to be a big expansion of Nick Chubb's snap rate, more chance for him in the pass game. But they played Dontrell Hilliard plenty. Then Dontrell Hilliard got hurt, and they played Dearness Johnson a bit too. So, yeah, it wasn't a great matchup. I thought Nick Chubb could overcome that with raw volume and touchdown expectation. But, yeah, Chris Carson should have been the play over Nick Chubb in hindsight.
You expected more out of Leonard Fournette, or as you like to call him, Lenny. 66 yards rushing. I saw some staggering percentages on your Twitter account, his usage against the Chiefs. What went wrong here?
Yeah, I was fine with playing Leonard Fournette. We're not going to get a guy who's going to get nearly 100% of his team's running back touches, who's really talented in a good matchup for 6,100 very often. So I have no regrets about playing Leonard Fournette. The problem was just the Jaguars just did not move the ball, turned it over, and Leonard Fournette lost a fumble when they looked like they might have been going in to score. And yeah, they're the Jaguars, so it's going to happen. And obviously losing Nick Foles didn't help either.
Last one, Marquise Brown was on the receiving end of a couple of bombs from Lamar Jackson. 47 and 83-yard touchdowns in that thrashing over the Dolphins. 33.7 DK points. How much did this have to do with A, Lamar Jackson, B, the pathetic Dolphins, or C, both?
Yeah, I don't think you could have made a case to play Marquise Brown by himself, but I played 3 tournament lineups. One of them did have Lamar Jackson. I chose to play Lamar Jackson naked. And so in hindsight, pairing him with Marquise Brown obviously would have made a huge difference. Marquise Brown did only end up playing 15 snaps or so. So it's not that bad, but man, that would have been nice to have Marquise Brown stacked with Lamar.
That's who Adam Levitan missed on in Week 1. You can find his coverage on DK Live, the DK Playbook, and on Twitter at Adam Levitan. We will catch you next Monday to see who Levy missed on in Week 2.
Going quad box on the sweat here. The Action Network's Matt LaMarca with DK Live's Jeff Ulrich, Reed Fowler, and Ben Zwyman. This segment is called Fantasy Lessons Learned. So what was the most important fantasy lesson you learned yesterday, and how will it affect your lineups going forward? Start us off here, LaMarca.
Yeah, so Austin Eckler for me is a no doubt RB1 every week moving forward. There were some out there that were a little bit skeptical about him heading into this season as the feature back. They pointed out that he did struggle in that role in a couple of games last year, but it was such a small sample size that I think we can officially throw those concerns out now. He went out against the Colts and did exactly what he's done his whole career, which is just dominate with the ball in his hand. 4.8 yards per carry, 16.0 yards per reception last year. And he's averaged at least a better yards per carry in each of his first 2 NFL seasons. He also had 19 opportunities compared to just 9 for Justin Jackson. So this is his backfield now. Jackson will work in, but Eckler is the man, and he's going to continue to produce because the guy's a baller.
Does anyone have any strong feelings about LaMarca's take there? Anyone? Okay, so
Ben does.
Thank you, Captain Obvious. I think in there you were like, he's dominated all his career, but also said that he didn't really thrive as the feature back. Like, here's the thing: even if Justin Jackson was getting carries, like Eckler's going to get carries and he's going to be viable in PPR, right? And when we saw last year, when Melvin Gordon was healthy, they still used Eckler a ton, and he still had really good games early in the season. So this is like one of the least surprising things I've ever heard in my life. That's basically how it goes.
Okay,
what do you have that, LaMarca?
I don't like lessons learned.
I mean, like, obviously we're going to play Eckler. He's going to be like, we knew he was going to be a cash play. Like, everyone sort of looked at these other plays in week 1, like, oh, Dalvin Cook, Chris Carson, CMC. Like, yeah, okay, but like Eckler was a little overlooked. But like, they were playing the Colts. It was an amazing game script, right? Jacoby Brissett for the Colts. They're at home, so yeah. I mean, it's not really surprising. I guess sure, like Eckler going off is a little surprising, but like I pretty much assumed he would get somewhere in the range of 15-20 points with all the volume he was going to get in the passing game.
Okay, Jeff, what was your most valuable fantasy lesson learned?
I faded Eckler, by the way. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Don't listen to Jeff.
You could have DM'd me then before the game started. My fantasy lesson is a similar price running back. It's that basically the only player on Seattle that's going to matter this year is Chris Carson. Look, the Seahawks talked about possibly getting him more involved in the pass game and stuff like that. And it rang true. He led the Seahawks in targets with 7. He caught 6 of 7 targets, caught a touchdown, ran for another touchdown. He had a pitiful, like, 3.4 yards per carry. It wasn't pretty, but this is what Seattle wants to do. Pete Carroll went off today, something about saying, like, they're going to run the ball on 3rd and long so they can't turn the ball over. I don't even know. Like, this is a team that just is going to run the ball. They were behind to Cincinnati, and they still only threw the ball 20 times. Tyler Lockett got 1 target. I know went for a touchdown, but fantasy-wise, it's Chris Carson, and it's pretty much nothing on Seattle. There might be some weeks, but it's really just Chris Carson.
I heard you laughing, Reed. Do you have something to say?
Well, I was laughing Jeff talks. It's just like, it's a prerequisite. No, it's true. I mean, Tyler Lockett, he keeps up his uber efficiency into 2019. 1 target, 1 catch, 1 touchdown. But look, I mean, Carson got 80% of the snaps this past week, and I think that's what we anticipated. I think that's what we liked to see. I mean, a lot of people even sitting on this couch like Tyler Lockett quite a bit. Yeah. And you look at DK Metcalf, and you think you would have to think that at some level that this team has to positively regress when it comes to the passing game. But Chris Carson, if he's getting 80%, he was doing this on 40% of the snaps last season, and he was uber efficient. Now he gets 80. Yeah, I agree with Jeff.
All right. My issue with Jeff's statement is that it's not going to be all season long. There are going to be weeks where Russell Wilson has good games. There are going to be weeks where Tyler Lockett has good games. It might even be week 2. They play the Steelers. The Steelers didn't look particularly well against the Patriots. Russell Wilson can run a little bit. And if we're talking in DFS, if they're going to be bad for a little bit, their prices are going to go down. And that's when you get value. If Russell Wilson's going to be priced in that mid 5K range and that low 5K range, then yeah, I want a piece of him because he can run a little bit. And you get that floor play. So yeah, I'm not worried about Tyler Lockett. He's going to get targets. He's going to get more than one target for one touchdown. I don't know if I'm fading the rest of the Seahawks team and just rolling with Chris Carson. Although I do love Chris Carson, and I agree that he will be a big chunk of this offense.
Okay, Reed, what lesson did you learn?
I'm scared now. I'm scared to say
yeah,
anything.
You got to do it. You got to say your lesson.
Wow,
next one.
Good one.
You got to do it.
So for me, the lesson I learned is Dalvin Cook doesn't need 70% or more of the snaps to be extremely efficient. This guy, if he can stay healthy, which is what we want, right? Which is what all of us want to see because of the talent that this guy possesses. We don't want him actually to eclipse this 70 to 75% snap share, because if you just see what he's been able to do on less than that throughout his career in Minnesota, it's been nothing short of fantastic. Some guys that got more snaps than him, Tariq Cohen, Devin Singletary, right? Todd Gurley, a guy that, we were told that wasn't going to be in a snap count and kind of was. And we just look at this run offense, you look at who's there, not North Turner, I can't remember his name, but just that offense or Stefanski, that offense is set for the zone run. It is set for a guy like Dalvin Cook. We know we like the receivers out there, but if we want him to be at this 70% because Alexander Mattison also looked extremely good as well to, possess some of those carries and give Cook a break. So that, and don't listen to coaches when they talk. Those are 2 things I learned.
Okay, anyone want to chime in on Reed's lesson?
I mean, it's Atlanta.
Yeah.
Every running back is going to do good against Atlanta. It's just basically just book it in. If the running back's facing against Atlanta, just book them in. But, Dalvin Cook is going to have a high snap percentage. There's no one else. They're not going to play Madison.
Not only was it Atlanta, they threw the ball 10 times.
Well, I don't think they're going to
ball like
throw the ball
100 times a game.
Then
sure, Cook only needs a 50% snap share. But if Cousins is going to throw the ball more than 10 times, then yeah, I'd like Cook to be on the field a little bit.
Yeah, but how much? Did anyone over here in the panel project that Atlanta was only going to score 13 points or 12 points? However much they scored.
I had them for 14. Sorry.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it for 1 second.
Sorry.
So, yeah, no, we didn't. We all thought that game could be a potential shootout. We liked Minnesota coming into this, and look, I don't want him. I really don't want him to be a workhorse, because if that means that he's going to hurt that knee, then yeah, keep him at 70, keep him at 65%.
All right, finally, Ben Zwyman's lesson. Please lay it on us.
I got a target on my back now. So my lesson after week 1 was that I'm almost going to never pay up for tight end this season. And I know that's a bold statement. It's already week 1 where we got guys like Travis Kelce and whatnot. But all right, look at it. 12 tight ends under 5,000 on week 1 slate had double-digit points. A lot of them hit value. Guy like Tyler Higbee and Blake Jarwin, both of them outscored Travis Kelce. If you're paying up at tight end, I feel like you're hamstringing the rest of your lineup. You need that cap flexibility to pay up for guys like CMC, guys like Kamara, high pop guys, those ceiling guys that you're looking for. So yeah, if I'm looking at anything the rest of the season, I'm going to be paying down a tight end. There's a ton of great guys. A guy I want to talk, TJ Hawkinson is a guy on the Lions. He looks fantastic. I think he's going to be an absolute stud. He's still priced incredibly low on the week 2 slate, and he's getting he had 9 targets, a $131 in that tie against the Cardinals, had a teeter. So yeah, I'm looking at Hawkinson as a guy that could emerge as sort of a Rob Gronkowski type. He's in that Matt Patricia system. They're trying to do the thing that the Patriots did. So I love paying down for tight end, and I think that's what you should do all season long.
Okay, anybody want to comment, Zwyman?
Yeah, my issue here is that if those guys continue to play well, their price is going up. If Hawkinson has another game like that, he's going to be 5K in week 3. So you need to adapt. I do agree that paying down is typically my default strategy, but to use guys like Blake Jarwin and Tyler Higbee as confirmation why, that's impossible to predict. You can never identify those guys. Travis Kelce is still going to give you a safe floor. If Patrick Mahomes didn't try a no-look pass for no reason yesterday,
Yeah, it was a
Kelce
couple.
comes down with an easy touchdown when he's wide open in the end zone, and we're not having this conversation. So I still think I agree with your premise that paying down in general is a nice strategy, but to say that you never want to use a guy like Travis Kelce, especially now that Tyreek Hill looks like he's going to miss extended time, I don't agree with that.
Just like when Jeff said don't play
until he's 10K.
Yeah, just like when Jeff said don't play Patrick Mahomes because he's too expensive. I think that's, there's use cases for it.
Well, we all learned some valuable lessons thanks to that segment. We'll analyze both of tonight's Showdown contests after some advice from the Pat Mayo experience.
The Week 1 waiver wire running back ads. If we look at the substantial injuries sustained at running back from Week 1, Joe Mixon exited the game with an ankle injury. It looks like that might cost him a few weeks. No word on that so far. Tevin Coleman also dealing with an ankle injury. He almost for certain will miss a few weeks. Then Dontrell Hilliard in the Cleveland backfield suffered a concussion after stealing a Nick Chubb touchdown. So we know with concussions, he could be back he could clear by next week. He could be back in 8 weeks. We don't know. It's not like you're picking up Dontrell Hilliard anyway, but he was affecting Nick Chubb just a little bit. So the overall rankings at running back, I threw Gio Bernard in at number 1. We know his pass catching prowess, and we've seen him in this spot before. Like, it seems like at some point over the past 5 seasons, Gio Bernard has been the number 1 waiver wire running back pickup at some point because the starter goes down, and then, hey, it's just all Gio all the time, and then he'll wildly underperform in the game that he starts, but make it up with like 8 catches for 33 yards. So PPR players can love it. These are PPR rankings, if you're wondering. Malcolm Brown, number 2, Chris Thompson, Raheem Mostert, Justin Jackson, Justin Hill, Darren Sproles, Naheem Hines, Ronald Jones, and the judge, Ito Smith, who was in a pure split with Devonta Freeman. The other guys I threw on there were like Frank Gore, CJ Anderson. Like, I don't want to own Mike Davis, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't know if any of these guys are priority pickups unless we find out that Joe Mixon is going to miss like 4, 5, 6 weeks. It depends on the severity of this ankle. But like even with Mostert, Brady's still there. Brady did not look good whatsoever, but that's always going to be a split. At least with Gio, in this circumstance, if Mixon is out, it does seem like it's going to be 75% plus Gio, and that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, when he started last year, the 2 games that he started, he had at least 19 PPR points in those games. And then, you look at what's coming up here, and, when he's off the field, when Mixon's off the field, Cincinnati passed 73% of the time when Mixon was off the field. So if Gio's going to get some of those passing down work, like that's kind of, where you're going to get those PPR points, obviously. But, 9 touches yesterday, 63 yards, wasn't a bad outing for him. But like, you're right. It feels like every single year there's a week where it's like, yeah, we got to go get Gio Bernard again because there's an injury and Gio's going to be that RB1. So I think he's the best one out of the group here. I think I wouldn't say he's a priority because I think overall, I think the running back waiver wire options are pretty weak overall. But, Gio has the capabilities of being that good starter when they need him to be. But obviously, once Mixon comes back, he's going to be scaled back immensely because obviously Mixon's the number 1 guy here in the offense.
Yeah, I talked about Malcolm Brown a little bit. He didn't even crack 30% of the snaps. He has scored those 2 touchdowns, and we're not even sure if those were circumstantial or that was the design to make him the goal line back. All of a sudden, he could be deemed irrelevant in terms of goal line work if those just happen to be Gurley drives next week against the Saints. So with Brown, it's very clear it's not Darrell Henderson. It's Malcolm Brown. Is that the guy that you want at least to be the second part of that chair or the handcuff to Todd Gurley? So if you're carrying Henderson, you might want to make the swap with Malcolm Brown. I don't think that he's someone you pick up and start, especially next week and moving forward. But maybe he can carve himself out like a Latavius Murray type role that if you're desperate for a flex, you can do it. Like if you had to start someone this week, I have Chris Thompson at number 3. He's probably He's probably a better start in week 2, but I think for my team long-term, if I didn't have to start any of these guys, I'd want to go Brown over Thompson.
Time to take a look at tonight's Showdown contest between the Texans and the Saints. DK Live's Reed Fowler and Ben Zwyman, plus RotoWire's Jerry Donabedian, are here to give their picks. Let's start with the quarterbacks. Deshaun Watson is the most expensive player on the slate, $11,400, while Drew Brees is $10,200. I mean, Reed, are you playing both, just one, maybe neither here?
Give me the sage. The wise man in Drew Brees. He's cheaper at home, higher implied game total. We know his home road splits. He's under the spotlight. I mean, this guy is fantastic at home. If you just look at his splits from last season, at 30 points higher in the passer rating, got 10 more touchdowns, completion percentage is a lot higher. I just like him in this spot at home against a Houston team that had some trouble in the secondary last season, and they didn't really do much. They obviously lose Jadeveon Clowney, so yeah, I like Breeze in this spot.
Ben, what you doing here?
I will counter read and say I like Deshaun Watson better. I think, though, in Showdown, especially in Cash Showdown, you're going to want to look at both quarterbacks, right? They both have high floors. But I like the game script for Watson. He's on the road. The Saints, the Saints are going to put up points, so Deshaun Watson, if the Texans get down, he's going to have to throw the ball a lot. They don't have Kiki Kuti. He's inactive tonight. But they still have Will Fuller. They still have Kenny Stills. They have DeAndre Hopkins. And their backfield is very, very shaky. Duke Johnson is a good back, but he's more of a third down guy. And right now their early down guy is Carlos Hyde, who got cut by the Chiefs. So really, I'm looking at Watson to throw the ball a lot tonight, and I'm not really worried about that offensive line being bad. It was bad all last season, and Watson was still pretty fantasy viable. So yeah, I'd lean him over Breeze.
Okay, Jerry, where are you going?
I'm going both here. I think you have to pull some tricks at the other spots to make it work. But Breeze with the efficiency. I mean, playing at home in prime time. His defense struggled against the pass last season, and I think they had some huge downgrades. They lost Jadeveon Clowney. And then in the secondary, they swapped out Kareem Jackson and the Honey Badger for Tashawn Gibson, Bradley Roby, a couple guys who are kind of name players, but probably downgrades. And a big coaching advantage, too, with Sean Payton against Bill O'Brien. So, yeah, I think Breeze will get the efficiency, put up the numbers early. Watson will be coming from behind without a running game to help him. He'll end up with the volume. And at the end of the day, I expect Breeze to put up the bigger numbers, even at lower salary. But I think both are going to be guys that you're going to want in your lineup. Like, they'll be two of the 3 or 4 highest scorers from this game.
Ben, Alvin Kamara and DeAndre Hopkins are just $200 apart tonight. If you can only have one, who's the better play?
There can only be one. I mean, if there can only be one, then I'm going Alvin Kamara because I know that he's going to get a ton of touches. I know that the Saints are going to want to run the ball. I'm not really worried about Latavius Murray being a factor in there because obviously he's sliding into that Mark Ingram role, but that's what happened all last season, and Kamara still got a ton of volume. I worry a little bit about DeAndre Hopkins just because, again, that offensive line. So if I'm going against what I said with Deshaun Watson and he's getting rushed a lot, and the Saints are trying to stop DeAndre Hopkins, then obviously he's going to look elsewhere. Plus, Marshawn Lattimore could be on Hopkins a lot of the game. Marshawn Lattimore is one of the best corners in the league. So yeah, I think we could see a lot of the touches funneled to Duke Johnson and Kenny Stills and Will Fuller, and maybe Hopkins doesn't get that ceiling game, but I know that Kamara has the potential for that, and he's going to have a better floor.
Okay, Jerry, who we going with?
I've got to go Hopkins. I definitely would see the argument for Kamara in cash, but I'm a tournament guy. And just looking on both sides of this game, both teams are good against the run and bad against the pass last year. And you look at both of them, we're in the bottom 3 in DVOA allowed to on passes to number 1 receivers. The Texans were actually 3rd best in DVOA on passes to running backs. I'm not saying Kamara is not going to get hit. He'll find the end zone, he'll put up some yards. But I think Hopkins is one of those spots where if Deshaun Watson is throwing 40 passes, Hopkins is in a good spot to get 13, 14 targets. He doesn't need to be super efficient to get to that 100-yard bonus. He's matched up against a cornerback, Marshawn Lattimore, who's a very good player. He's a guy who gives up yards, he gives up touchdowns, he makes big plays, but if he gets an interception, it's not going to hurt Hopkins. So I think it's a really nice matchup for him to just stack up those catches.
Reed.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Donnie Beating here. I like Hopkins, and to what Zweig said a little bit towards the end of what he was talking about is if that game script is what we think it is, which I think he's right in that estimation where there's going to be a lot of passing, give me Hopkins. On the road, this guy had 100 yards on average last season and over 10 targets a game on the road. This guy's QB proof, even though you don't need to be with Deshaun Watson. He could be cornerback proof. We know Lattimore is really good, but Hopkins is better, so give me Nuke.
Who are you putting in the captain spot, Jerry?
Well, I already told you that I want Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, and Drew Brees in my lineup. And the way I'm going to do that is by putting Traquan Smith in the captain spot. Obviously, a high-risk play there. But I think he's kind of priced as if he's the clear number 3 receiver in New Orleans. I'm not so sure about that. Like, based on the playoffs last year, yeah, he ran behind Ginn. But in the preseason with the first-team offense, it was more 50-50. Talking about a guy who came in as a rookie, put up 9.7 yards per target, 5 touchdowns on 44 targets as a 22-year-old. Guys who come in and produce at that level when they're 22 usually go on to have good NFL careers. Ted Ginn, obviously on the other end of the age spectrum. So I think this is kind of just an early opportunity to bet on Smith stepping up ahead of Ginn and even ahead of Jared Cook in that passing game.
Reed, your captain, please.
I do really like Traquan Smith. He was one of my favorite plays last season, but it's Will Fuller. I mean, we get Will Fuller at a healthy game, so you have to put him in because we don't know when we're going to get Will Fuller. Guys, glass knees, glass hamstrings, glass everything. But 11 touchdowns in the last 16 games, and the Saints gave up the second best to wide receiver twos, according to DVOA, around 80 yards on average, and they're one of the worst against the long ball, and that's Will Fuller, so give me him.
Okay, Ben, captain.
Oh, captain, my captain, Kenny Stills. 5,400, a little sort of like a Reed play, but I like Stills to get some separation, and I like paying down in that captain slot, like Jerry said, to pay up for those high-priced guys. But Stills to me is a home run guy. All he needs to do is really break coverage once and get behind the secondary and hope that Deshaun Watson can hit him for a touchdown. And if he does that, then you're looking good. And I think he's a decent tournament play. Maybe in cash, I'm leaning towards some of those high-priced guys in the captain slot, those ceiling guys. But yeah, I think if Stills can break one at wide receiver 3 for the Texans, I think that's a good play for value. Okay, value. Oh, okay, value. Reed, you wanna give me some value here?
Yeah, give me some Taysom Hill, $1,600. This is kind of a little bit part and parcel on why I think Kamara's ceiling is a little capped, which is weird to say because he's such a transcendent talent. This is what the Saints do. We saw it last season. They used a lot of different packages in the red zone. So Taysom Hill, Latavius Murray. Latavius Murray was brought there specifically not to fulfill the Mark Ingram role, but to be used inside the 20. And so I like a couple of those guys on the Saints side that are cheap options.
Ben, some real value, not just a captain value.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to keep contradicting myself here. I like Murray, but the guy I'm looking at is Carlos Hyde. He's only 2,000. Bill O'Brien said he's going to get an early down role, so I know that he's going to at least get some touches. I don't think Duke Johnson is a guy that can really be the guy and be the lead back. And maybe the game script plays against Carlos Hyde a little bit, but if there's a lot of scoring and the Texans are in the red zone, if I'm getting him at 2,000 and all he needs to do is score a touchdown to hit value at 3 times, then I like those odds a little bit. I think he could get into the end zone.
Jerry, some value. Sorry, did I cut you off, Ben?
That's okay.
You took a big pause.
Smith, I'm going all the way down here with Jordan Akins at 600. He'll be on the field and they'll throw the ball a lot. That's kind of, at that price, that's really all I need. And like I said, I like Breeze, I like Watson, I like Hopkins, I like Michael Thomas. So you got to sacrifice somewhere, and he's the cheapest guy that has a reasonable shot to get like 4 or 5 targets. So I'm going with him.
Sure you don't want to add anything, Ben?
No, I'm good.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. We'll take a look at tonight's other showdown game on the other side of this break. First, Adam Kaufman. He caught up with Donovan McNabb at the kickoff bash that DraftKings had down in Hoboken. Take a look.
Let's do a little would you rather. Let's have some fun with this stuff, all right? We'll start right at the heart of it. Would you rather have the Patriots win another Super Bowl? It would be number 7. Or have a migraine headache throughout the playoffs?
I don't want a migraine headache throughout the playoffs. And I don't want to see them win another Super Bowl. What's my next option?
That's it. All right, now I want you to size me up a little bit.
Yeah.
Much smaller guy than you, I know.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. In the NFL, you got to choose to either have my speed or my size.
Now, who said you was fast?
I didn't say it.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. That's for you to decide. My speed or my size. You got to pick one.
Now, me playing the quarterback position, I would probably have to say your speed then.
Yeah, that's
because I don't want your size.
You get murdered.
You got the size of a kicker,
but maybe a punter,
a holder,
not even a holder. All right, how about make it to the Super Bowl and lose, or not make the playoffs at all?
Make it to the Super Bowl and lose.
Yeah.
It's an experience, man. It's easy from the outside to say, I wish you would have won the Super Bowl. Yeah, me too. But you know what? I got there.
Yeah.
And that was
a people could say that.
Heck of an experience, believe me, brother. Heck of an experience.
Would you rather be a Raiders fan or get frostbite on your feet?
Raiders fan? Man, his feet look awful, man. Man, that was like a bad Sasquatch cartoon, man. His feet, who posts his videos of their feet like that? That's disgusting, man. That's terrible.
It's Brendan Glasheen with the DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Bad news for the Redskins backfield. According to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, Darius Geis likely to miss time. The former second-round running back had an MRI on the knee he injured at LSU. It's the non-ACL knee, which he tore last year. The hope is Geis does not need surgery. This paves the way for Chris Thompson to get plenty of more touches on the ground. He was targeted 10 times in the Skins' passing game against the Eagles. Just 3 carries, though, so that number is bound to increase. And don't forget Adrian Peterson. There was a report Washington players were unhappy AP was a healthy scratch from the Eagles game. That's a first in AP's career, by the way. The Redskins kind of need AP now to balance that running back workload. Thompson and Peterson are 3,900 and 3,400 respectively for next Sunday's divisional affair at home against the Cowboys.
Final block of the show, folks. DK Live's Jeff Ulrich, RotoWire's Jerry Donabedian, and the Action Network's Matt LaMarca are here to analyze tonight's showdown contest between the Broncos and Raiders. Derek Carr and Joe Flacco are the most expensive players in this one. Both only averaged just above 15 DK points last season. Jeff, are either of these guys worth rostering?
This is kind of one of those games where you might not even need a quarterback in your lineup. I'm not saying you should just ignore them completely, but it could possibly work out that way. Denver wants to run the ball a lot. Denver has a good defense, so you could see a dud from Derek Carr. He certainly put up a dud in at least one of the games he had against them last week. If I was leaning between the two, I would go with Derek Carr just because I feel like Denver's got a much better chance just to get all their scores through their running game, put pressure on Oakland to pass late, and then Derek Carr just racks up some garbage time. So if you're asking me who to choose, it would be Carr. Probably pair him. It's a little bit easier to pair with, too, since obviously Oakland is down a receiver, and the targets are going to be a little bit more condensed. So not expecting a huge game from either one of these guys, but Derek Carr would be my choice.
Jerry, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to not pick one of the quarterbacks, and I think unenthusiastically going with Flacco here. He's got definitely the softer matchup, but you worry that, Denver has a good defense and a good running game, and so Flacco's not going to get the volume necessarily. Plus, he's Joe Flacco. That never helps. And then Derek Carr has the much harder matchup against the Denver defense, but you kind of figure he's probably going to end up passing a bunch. And I think it's one where I kind of take the efficiency over and granted efficiency because we're talking about Flacco, but relative here, I'll take that over the volume. I think the Raiders are actually going to try to run the ball a bunch. Like, even if they get down, I don't think they have many other options. And I think the relative weakness of the Denver defense is up the middle rather than on the edges. So I think Carr's volume might disappoint a little, and to me, that points to Flacco.
Okay, Matt, we got one for Flacco, one for Carr. Where are you going?
I'm playing them both.
Okay.
To me, this is an easy slate to play both quarterbacks. I mean, there are so many value options. You have the defenses, you have the kickers, you have all the guys for the Raiders that are expected to catch passes. And even though neither of these QBs are like great, they're still quarterbacks, right? Quarterbacks score the most points in fantasy football, and the name of the game in Showdown is scoring the most points. So if I can afford both, and I think you pretty easily can, I don't see why you wouldn't want to play both.
With Antonio Brown gone, Terrell Williams moves up to the number 1 wide receiver spot for Oakland. Jerry, is he going to be too chalky for you to play? There's not a lot of other guys to choose from.
Yeah, absolutely. Chalky is, that's the word. I think that Derek Carr and Tyrell Williams is going to be kind of the go-to, and then people are going to use a lot of Phillip Lindsay. So in terms of a tournament strategy, definitely I'd rather go in the other direction, like I said, with Flacco and Emmanuel Sanders. And Tyrell Williams also, he won't exclusively be matched up on Chris Harris, but he'll have to deal with that for part of the night, and he's going to have to deal with some pretty good Denver safeties and Justin Simmons and Kareem Jackson. And I'm just like, I'll go with the chalk if I know the volume's there. I just don't, even though he's the only man left, I just don't trust it. I mean, we saw last year Amari Cooper averaged 5.2 targets per game with the Raiders, and he was like the only good receiver they had. They just threw dump off to Jalen Richard and Jared Cook. And I'd rather, when other people are going to be going for Williams, I'd rather bet on what we saw last year, which is all the dump offs to the running backs.
Matt, where are you going on this one?
Yeah, I'll be underweight on him. I'm not saying that I'm going to fade him completely, but I definitely think you want to target the Broncos D with the Raiders running backs here. I mean, the Broncos defense was excellent last season, and they added 2 cornerbacks in the offseason that were both ranked top 14 according to Pro Football Focus. So I think that this defense is going to be really good. But the one area that they did kind of struggle with is defending passes out of the backfield. So I like that call. I think that you want Jalen Richard in this matchup. I think he's going to play more than people anticipate. And I think that Josh Jacobs makes sense too. So I'll be going with the cheaper pass catchers for the Raiders and sort of passing on Tyrell here.
Jeff, where are you going on this one?
Yeah, it's no guaranteed spot here for Terrell Williams. I still like him. I mean, I just like the player too much to just pass on him on this spot because he is the wide receiver 1. I mean, he's just so good. I mean, he can break a play, 50-yard touchdown, basically a drop of a hat. And you look at what the Raiders did against Denver last year, and they did add some talent. But I mean, Amari Cooper had a big game. Jordy Nelson even went for 75 yards. So again, if he gets the targets, he's probably going to do enough to produce, especially on a showdown slate. I'm just not confident enough to say that like Hunter Renfrew's going to get targets or like Darren Waller yet. It could end up that way, but I feel like Tyrell is probably going to end up with enough targets to make him close to a must play, if not a must play.
Matt, who are you putting in the captain spot?
Yeah, this is a tough one, but I think I'm going to go with Joe Flacco. I definitely want somebody from the Broncos. I think that they're the team that you want to be sort of heavier on here, but it's hard to pick one particular Bronco that stands out. The running backs, I think we're looking at much closer to a 50-50 split this year between Lindsey and Royce Freeman. I mean, that's what at least all the beat writers want you to believe. The receivers, no one really stands out to me as like a number 1 option. I could see Cortland Sutton. I could see Emmanuel Sanders. But if they are going to catch the ball, it's coming from Flacco. He spread it around in the preseason. So I'll go with Flacco. I think he's sort of the safest route you can go with here. Maybe not the highest upside route, but Flacco is the way I'm leaning at the moment.
Jeff, who are you captaining?
I think Flacco's a really good contrarian pick because, I mean, like people forget, Cortland Sutton and Emmanuel Sanders, pretty good wide receiver duo. I do like Royce Freeman, though, going in the captain spot. I think they're going to use him more this year. And again, if Denver gets out in front early, you'll see him used more towards the goal line as well. I mean, he's a very effective back. I know Phillip Lindsay was so good last year, and he's obviously still going to be involved. But I feel like this is a good spot to jump on it before everyone's sort of like questioning what's going to happen and just not confident about it. I think Royce Freeman, given a lead, pair him with the Denver defense, and he could come up with a big game. And he's really cheap, which lets you fit in both quarterbacks, too.
Jerry, your captain.
I actually like the Flacco idea, but my guy is Josh Jacobs. I think this game it looks ugly in terms of like what we expect in terms of efficiency and in terms of not knowing where the ball is going to go. I mean, Denver's got this 3-way backfield split. Don't forget that Devontae Booker is still probably going to get passing downs. That cuts out a little bit of Lindsey and Freeman's upside. And then on both teams, it's like, it's Hunter Renfrow or Tyrell Williams, Cortland Sutton, Emmanuel Sanders, if we had more confidence in like him being back to his full explosion. The one thing that I can confidently say is that Josh Jacobs will be getting the carries for the Raiders. Can't confidently tell you that he'll be efficient with those carries or that he'll get a bunch of targets, but I think he's your safe bet for 15 touches in this game. And I think people will be a little bit scared off of him because of the Denver defense, because we've seen some rookie running backs kind of start very slow in the NFL this year, which is a big contrast to the past few years. And I think that also some people will want Jalen Richard, to which I say just take both. I mean, it's a showdown slate. Nothing wrong with taking 2 running backs from the same team, and Jacobs is the guy that I want in the captain spot.
That's a show, folks. I'm Jessie Coffield. The Sweat, that's this show, will be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. So be sure to tune in. Emerson will finally be back. You can watch us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and as always, the DK Live app, which, by the way, if you haven't downloaded it now, take out your phone, go in there, search it, download it, and watch us on it tomorrow night at 6 p.m. We will see you tomorrow.